A difficult theme in that is the theme of kingship, so we're going to do this video today about kingship. So kingship is the idea that there is a rightful king, and that king has divine right, which means they are chosen by God. And in this play, the theme of kingship is very much reacting to the anxieties of the age. So let's just first break down the theme as we normally would. So kingship is the decision for who is king, and that king must have divine right. They must be chosen by God. That's the meaning of kingship. Now we think about what characters represent that in the play. Okay, so kingship is represented by Duncan. He's the king at the beginning, isn't he? Kingship is represented by Macbeth, who becomes king immorally. Does not have that. Not have divine right. And then Malcolm, who becomes king at the end. And then we think, what is Shakespeare trying to promote or denounce? It's our third thing. We do the meaning of the question, we do what characters it represents, and we do what is he trying to promote or denounce. What kind of kingship are we looking for? It's this at by the end, isn't it? This divine, kind of rightful king that brings unity, stability, and order to the country. Okay? So before we do this, just because this is a revision video, let's revise what is needed here. So Shakespeare is writing in response to the anxieties of the age. The anxieties in 1606. Now, King James had only recently become king, King James I. Now, King James I was from Scotland, and that kind of decision to put a Scottish ancestor on the English throne united Scotland and England. And because of anxieties around religion in that time, because King James I was, I want to say, Catholic, and the church at the time, yeah, he was Catholic, but the church at the time, the king at the time was Protestant. This kind of decision to put a different religion as the figurehead again. Not only that, combining Scotland and England meant there was a lot of anxieties. We don't have a long time in the exam to talk about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it as many people questioned his claim to the throne. And we're going to think about what it is to have a claim to a throne. What it is to be able to take that throne. And what that means is what makes a rightful king or a rightful king. And not King James I, Shakespeare is writing in a time of great instability. There had been a lot of plots and treason in this time. Treason is acts against the king, okay? Specifically, Shakespeare is writing in response to the gunpowder plot of 1605. So we know specifically this play is being written in response to an event. And essentially what Shakespeare is trying to teach is that treason will be punished. Yeah, treason will be punished, and that the rightful king provides stability and order. And essentially he's trying to promote, let's get to here, he is trying to promote I'm trying to think of the best word for King James. He's trying to promote I'm going to say, instead of promote I'm going to say promote King James the First's rightful claim to the throne. Let's take all those ideas and put them together. He's trying to claim and promote that King James I has a rightful claim to the throne, and therefore he will provide stability stability, order. He will have divine right. He does have divine right because he was chosen by God. Whereas he is trying to denounce reason. Yeah? So we have that idea of kingship. Now we need to think of each character that represents this and what we understand about their representation. So first things first, we have Duncan, Macbeth, and Malcolm. Okay? Let's think about what order they're in. Now you see that I've written them in order. So we have Duncan first. Is he a moral or immoral king? Moral. Is Duncan alive by the end? No. He dies. Does he provide stability or instability? His death brings instability, doesn't it? Yeah? The loss of a king provides instability. Okay. Moral or immoral king? Immoral king. Oh, next to immoral, we know that he has divine right. He sat in the Lord's anointed temple. He showers people with golden opinions. We have this idea that this is a moral, divine king. Whereas Macbeth is an immoral king. He actually becomes a tyrant, doesn't he? And Macbeth is a person who is once fair, but is corrupted to become foul. And the idea of he was once full of the milk of human kindness, becomes corrupted by the gall of witchcraft. He was once a person full of the milk of human kindness. He becomes a person corrupted by gall. He was once Valor's minion, but becomes a hellhound. Yeah, he once served Valor. He becomes a person who serves hell. That is not honourable, something that provides stability, is it? And then our final king is Malcolm. Is Malcolm a moral or immoral king? Moral. And he's alive at the end. And he provides stability and order. He restores Scotland because he restores it from what Macbeth the tyrant did to Scotland. Okay? And he is the rightful king. He is the rightful heir. And he, Malcolm, represents King James. King James's succession. And he therefore represents King James's succession as him being the right heir. Now, the final thing to think about before you then went and plan this question is what kingship tries to represent in this play. I want you to always see the play like this and think about how the theme makes Scotland go like this. Okay? Because when we start, Scotland is a powerful nation filled with powerful characters. And the king, it is unfortunate war, but that war is battle is solved at the very start of the play. So the start of the play, we see a restoration of order brought about by moral heroism. Heroes bring that morality. Yeah? Macbeth is a noble, brave, honourable hero. He is Valor's minion. He halves his passage. This idea of this kind of unstoppable force who will protect Scotland no matter what. And he provides stability. Yeah? Scotland is saved. Scotland is secure. Scotland is stable. Scotland becomes destabilised by corruption, immorality, and treason. So Shakespeare is warning us about corruption, immorality, and treason. That is metaphorically the supernatural in this play. Now, there was a great fear around the supernatural, and there was a fear around witchcraft in King James's time. So there is a literal thing here. But equally, he's not just talking about witches, he's talking about these everyday destabilizing forces. So I want you to think about the supernatural as a destabilizing force. And Shakespeare is trying to warn us against destabilizing forces, such as corruption, immorality, and treason. Okay? And that corruption, immorality, and treason causes instability in Scotland. We have regicide. Yeah? The death of a king, which would be the most shocking thing on stage. Okay? We have treason. Yeah? We talked about the milk of human kindness becoming the gall, becoming poisonous. Okay? He rejects God, remember, he says, stars hide your fires. He rejects heaven. He rejects the light of God. He rejects morality. He is destabilized and corrupted. He is a man who yields to immorality. He is a man who commits treason. This is not a person you would want on the throne. And we see how a person who is not a rightful king, a person who does not have divine right, affects Scotland, because we have this destabilization. Yeah? Macbeth is a man who is punished for his treason. So let's think about what punishments he has. Firstly, he says, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. And then he says things like, the fact he has a barren scepter, yeah, and a fruitless crown. So let's think about those ideas. Scorpions, this idea of paranoia, this constant threat to his throne, and this idea of a fruitless crown. We see that Macbeth suffers a psychological punishment. Psychological punishment. More than that, he has that physical punishment. He's killed by the end, isn't he? He's beheaded by Macduff. So Macduff, who refers to Macbeth as a hellhound, kills Macbeth. And Malcolm leads this charge. Malcolm, who understands that the brightest fell. Yeah, Malcolm. The brightest was the angel Lucifer, who fell from heaven. He was literally Lucifer, morning star. Lucifer means light bringer. The light bringer fell from heaven. Yeah, he committed treason and fell. Malcolm knows that people can seem light, but they can actually be dark. He knows that we can look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. And this kind of power, this kind of knowledge in Malcolm shows his strength as a leader, and he leads the charge against Macbeth. So kingship requires a moral leader, doesn't it? So this idea that Macbeth is killed means that treason will be punished physically. We have a physical punishment. This idea of death, yeah? Treason will be met with death. But then we also have this idea of the life punishment, this kind of idea of damnation. As soon as Macbeth commits this treason, we see that Amen is stuck in his throat. He cannot say Amen. This idea, and he cannot sleep no more. He will have no rest, no internal rest either. This idea of damnation means that Macbeth will suffer a punishment long after this play is over and long after his reign as king. He will suffer damnation, this kind of moral punishment. So this really criticises treason for us and helps us to understand the dangers of treason. So every single time I'm talking about Macbeth, I'm coming back to how he's been destabilised by these forces of evil, by malevolent forces, of corruption, of immorality and treason. And these lead to punishment, which therefore promotes this kind of leader instead, and denounces this kind of leader. And at the end, Malcolm says that Scotland will be planted newly. Makes us think of a garden, makes us think of paradise. Yeah, this idea, we're reminded of his divine right, and we see that Scotland is restored. Like at the beginning, we have a restoration by a moral hero, and he provides stability and order. Again, promoting the legitimacy of King James. That was the word I was looking for earlier. When they were questioning King James's power and like claim to the throne, they were questioning whether he was a legitimate They were questioning his legitimacy. Okay? His legitimacy is his right to rule. And he does have a right to rule because he provides stability and order. Yeah? He is a person who has, where did I put divine right? He's a person who has divine right. Okay? So if we keep those ideas in mind, every single time we talk about kingship or we talk about leadership, we're going to talk about how important it is for leadership to be moral, to be divine, to be righteous, and not to be corrupt, immoral, or gained through treason. One against treason, promoting legitimacy. Okay, give that a go by yourselves and see what ideas you can come to in your paragraphs.